Welcome to this bonus four-part mini-series of lessons, smack dab in the middle of the magical academic note-taking course where we are going to talk about blocks. Throughout the course, we have been talking a lot about smart notes and how we are going to use smart notes to make the result of producing a thesis, a dissertation, or an academic journal article easy, efficient, and much simpler than we have been doing it in the past. What we haven't discussed is that essentially a smart note is almost the same thing as a block in Rome research. Almost the same thing. A smart note can actually be made up of many blocks. What we don't talk about a lot is exactly what a block is. And I think for many people, it's very difficult to understand the uniqueness, the importance, and the capabilities that blocks present to someone who is using Rome research. So these videos are actually not just for academic users of Rome research, but in fact are for any user of Rome research who wants to dig a little bit deeper into exactly what blocks are and what makes them so fantastic. So, first question we have is, what exactly are blocks in Rome research? Well, blocks are the text supported by a single bullet in Rome research, and it's called a block. So, one bullet equals a block. Blocks are actually single, if they're done right, single atomic units of information. So they can be a single sentence or a full paragraph, but they should contain a single thought, idea, message, etc. So that just sounds like a paragraph that you would write in Microsoft Word. Well, what is it that makes a block in Rome research so unique? And for this, I'm going to turn to the most fantastic analogy presented to me by Rome Hacker on Twitter. Rome Hacker and I got into a bit of a conversation about the analogy that he used, so I've modified it slightly, but primarily it's his idea. This is what makes blocks unique. So there you go. There's the hat tip to Rome Hacker for the original analogy, and you can go and follow him on Twitter. So what makes blocks unique is that they are just like an address. Unlike in Microsoft Word, where you have a paragraph or a sentence on a page, that paragraph or sentence doesn't have any sort of permanence on that page. If you add another paragraph before it, or even if you nest a paragraph underneath of it, it doesn't make any difference to the permanence of that specific piece of text. It can be moved around, shuffled around, and it can get lost, say, in a larger document. Not so with blocks. What blocks are essentially, they have a unique identifier. So just like in a database where a record has a unique identifier, your single block of text, which can contain anything that you want to inside of it, also has a single identifier. So it's easy to look at blocks using the analogy of an address. So here we are using that analogy in a graphic that hopefully will make sense to you. So what we have is we have Lisa City, and this purple outline outlines actually my entire graph. So any graph is the name of the city. So your personal graph, the address for your personal graph is actually is synonymous with the city in a street address. And then within that graph, I have multiple pages. And the page is synonymous with the street in a street address. So I have a page called Ivy Road. I have a page called Pine Avenue. I have a page called Elm Street. And then on those pages, I actually have blocks of text. But those blocks are identified by a unique number. So what's actually really interesting is that you can have a block that you can have a house that lives on a street because a house is synonymous with block, but also happens to move to another street. So I have tongue in cheek called them vacation houses, but really they are referenced blocks. But the neat thing that that does is it gives that house a whole new address because it lives on a different street in the same city. However, over multiple graphs, you could have pages with the exact same name. So the graph name is very important as well because that also lends the address its uniqueness. So here we have multiple original houses, which are in the dark yellow. And then we have these referenced houses on different pages. You can move them around. We've put House 3 from Pine Avenue on Ivy Road. We've put House 5 from Elm Street on Pine Avenue. We've put House 2 from Ivy Road onto Pine Avenue, which means we've changed the address. We've got two addresses here. One is 2 Ivy Road, Lisa City. That's the original block. And the second address is a reference block, but it creates a whole new address. So we've got 2 Pine Avenue, Lisa City. So that's how blocks work, and why they are so unique, because they can actually be moved around, but yet you can still find them. They still have an individual identifier. You know exactly where they are. This makes them incredibly powerful when you start to pull several blocks together to form ideas and outputs that come out of Rome research. There's another difference that's really important. Imagine if instead of actually moving to a new house, you could simply replicate your existing house onto a different street in a different location. So I've decided I want to move to San Francisco, but I love my house. I can just pick up my house, leaving this house where it is, and putting it over in San Francisco. And guess what? When my new house is in San Francisco, I can even make changes to that house to suit my new location. So maybe when I move my house to Aspen, I'm going to put in a hot tub. But I don't want a hot tub in Scotland because it's too cold to go out and get in the hot tub. So I've actually left my original house, changed the new house. That's what blocks do. Does that sound magical? Well, it sounds magical because it is magical. That's what makes up Rome research. So, the other unique thing about blocks is that they have fixed yet flexible relationships. So, as discussed above, you can put a block anywhere on a graph, on any page, in multiple pages, and you can also relate it to other blocks in several ways, which we're going to talk about in the next video. This makes your blocks into time travelers. Because of their multiple and fixed connections, they can appear magically and serendipitously right when you need most to see them. That's if you have a process in place to manage your blocks correctly. So, more about the types of relationships you can create, what I call block connections, in another video. But that's what makes blocks unique.